I think really for me, like confidence has always been a super important part of just being able to launch these projects. Like without confidence, without feeling confident in the code itself, it's hard to actually convince yourself that something is ready to be released out to everyone and into the world.
Hello, everyone. This is Coding Color Your Glasses, the podcast where I teach you how to level up your coding journey by breaking down jargon, tech topics, and inspiring you to be your best coding self. I'm your host, Lynn, and today I have an extraordinary guest. We have Charlotte Rosario. And Charlotte is a self-proclaimed tinkerer and community advocate who is passionate about mental health and suicide prevention, and she has dedicated a good chunk of her life to helping and advocating for society's most vulnerable people. And some of her notable works include Know Me, and her short film It's Time We Talk About It, which addresses stigmas around mental health and how to address it, which I really loved, by the way. It was great. All of that to say, welcome to the podcast, Charlotte.
Thank
And
you. Thank you so much for having me here.
obviously, I'm eager to hear about what sparked your passions, how you overcame challenges, and obviously your experiences will obviously inspire our listeners. So let's get into it. So tell me a little bit about your background, how you grew up, what made you interested in mental health, and like how you use tech and mental health to help people.
Yeah, for sure. So I am from the San Francisco Bay Area. So I was kind of born into an environment where there was kind of always a lot of stuff happening around tech. I was kind of raised to, I was actually, well, so I have an older brother, and he was kind of my way of first kind of getting into the field of STEM. I always would watch him kind of build things, and that kind of really piqued my interest. In middle school, I joined a all girls FTC robotics team, which was really fun because that kind of allowed me to be in an environment where girls were getting involved in STEM and tech, but it was done so in like a fun, collaborative way. So from there, I kind of fell in love with coding. I was a coder on that robotics team, and really kind of my journey started to take a turn in seventh grade, which was the year that COVID started for me. But it was also the year that my dad actually passed away. My dad actually tragically died by suicide when I was in middle school. And so going through that experience, I really felt emboldened to find a way to use whatever skills that I had at the time, which was the ability to build some websites and code and do a few things with code and STEM, and find a way to help people and find a way to apply, technology to do good for my community. I began to enter, I started working in Invention Studio, which is a social innovation program at my school that helps high schoolers build products for social good. And from there, I started to think about myself, as a builder, how can I build products that help people with mental health and, help make mental health resources more accessible. So that's kind of my journey over the years, but definitely had to go through a lot of ups and downs along the way to find where.
Obviously, and I'm obviously so sorry about your dad passing away. I know that could be very traumatic. It is very traumatic, and it's definitely something nobody wants to experience. But I want to commend you on using that trauma for social good. And how do you feel like not? How do you feel that that trauma really like pushed you to like really dive deep into mental health and helping other people? When you first started, was it like, is this like wrong? Like, did you have any like mixed feelings about using like your father's death as a way to push you, or did you just go head on like tunnel vision?
Yeah, that's a really great question. To be completely honest, I was 100% not the same person I am today, during the 2 years after my dad passed away. Those were kind of the COVID years for me. And it was also, so it was really a time that was pretty isolating and lonely. I struggled a lot in the 2 years after his death to talk about mental health, to talk about suicide, even, saying the word suicide out loud was something that I was scared to do. I didn't really tell friends about what had happened, teachers I didn't tell. So that was a period where I had to spend a lot of time thinking about myself, introspecting, thinking about who I am as a person, how much, my dad's genetics even affect me. There was a lot of questions I was dealing with. And so really what kind of prompted me to come out of my shell and actually start looking at the mental health space, was the death of Katie Meyer. She was the Stanford women's soccer team captain and someone that quite a few people in my community were friends with or familiar with. And so after her death, which tragically was by suicide, I started to realize that what I was experiencing was not just a personal family issue, but a global mental health crisis. And something, that a lot of people, a lot of families were struggling with. And so really Katie Meyer's death inspired me to first kind of come forward through filmmaking, which is kind of like a fun hobby for me. I love photography. I've been taking photos around my community since I was really young. And so with my camera, I wanted to find a way to communicate a message about mental health and kind of break down the stigma. So making a short documentary is kind of my first foray into mental health advocacy. And from there, I started to think about how could I apply tech to actually do similar work to help people around mental health.
Yeah. And in your documentary, I saw that like you kind of explained some of the ways that you feel would be beneficial to improving mental health and like decreasing the stigma around mental health. Do you want to kind of like elaborate on some of the ways that you talked about and how you plan to use tech to, make that connection?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think that's a really great question. In terms of, the big challenges that I've seen around mental health, I know that for one, young people are one of the, or kind of facing really, really bad mental health rates right now, in terms of social media and things around that. What's interesting, however, is that stigma for young people is actually less of a concern nowadays than it was in the past. And that's because, a lot more people are talking about mental health. And so the big problem now for young people is generally around accessing resources and education around mental health. A lot of people are aware of mental health, but a lot of people know where to go, what services are available in their communities. And so that's kind of one of the big issues that I tried to address through using technology. I've been working on a project called Search Mental Health with the National Alliance for Mental Illness, which is essentially a platform that uses AI to immediately match people with mental health services wherever, whenever. And so that's kind of one of the big applications of technology for, mental health is helping people access services.
Yeah, perfect segue into your new project. So really elaborate on your newest project and what you are planning to use AI to do and how AI is going to connect those people to those mental health services. Like what are those services and, what can people access them from far? Like do they need a phone, computer?
Yeah. So in terms of Search Mental Health, it's a platform that's available to really anyone on the internet. All you have to do is go to searchmentalhealth.com. And on the platform, it allows people to search for services kind of like through a diary entry. The whole purpose of the platform is to help people who, especially young people who may be afraid to call a helpline or speak to an adult to immediately find services just by describing their current situation. Young people are known to be pros at typing, texting. So the idea is that you can just go on Search Mental Health. There's a text box. That's all there really is. And you just kind of talk about what's going on in your life. And using AI, I'm able to actually assign appropriate services to that person's situation. And all of these services also come from the SAMHSA government website. So SAMHSA is kind of the US government's national mental health association. And they have a lot of publicly available data around available mental health services. So using that data, I was able to kind of connect the dots with AI and connect people now, or offer really a service that connects people to services.
Wow, that's really awesome. That is like so crazy. So, when you were creating or coming up with this idea, how did you find a mentor? How did you go about creating this idea? Did you partner with an organization?
Yeah, it's a great question. I have been working with the National Alliance for Mental Illness, which is the nation kind of leading mental health organization. They have been instrumental in helping Search Mental Health reach users and just get the word out. I actually have been involved with NAMI, which is the acronym for the organization, for over 2, 3 years now. I was involved with the organization in San Francisco, their San Francisco branch, as a youth council member back in 2022 through 2023. And funny enough, I was actually assigned a task of creating their PDF resource guides, which are just like these lists of resources and services that I would compile and throw on their website. And it's kind of been a whole full circle moment because with Search Mental Health, I've been actually pulling from those exact resource guides that I created 2 years ago and putting it on this new kind of digitized website. So yeah, it's been amazing to work with. Shout out to Asha and Anne at NAMI SF. And now I'm also going to be starting to work with NAMI California and working with their affiliates across the state. And then hopefully someday partner with the national branch too to reach all 600 affiliates across the country.
Beautiful. That is so amazing. So proud of all your accomplishments and definitely a full circle moment here with working back then and then having you use that same data. That's amazing. Well, with partnering with different branches, I know that can definitely be a little bit difficult. How did you prove yourself when it came to working with those certain branches? How did you prove that you had the skills to take on the projects that you were assigned and that you had the skills to create such a AI system, to create such a platform?
Yeah, I think really for me, like confidence has always been a super important part of just being able to launch these projects. Like without confidence, without feeling confident in the code itself, it's hard to actually convince yourself that something is ready to be released out to everyone and into the world. I think really I have been really fortunate to have just again amazing mentors and people who have supported me not just in the coding and development journey, but even just on a personal level. I think with my partnership with NAMI over the years, I've really been able to connect with people and the organizations in these different branches just on a personal level of sharing our stories. a lot of people who are in the mental health space come from and have lived experience, which kind of drives their work. And so I have really enjoyed being able to connect with these people and just hear about what inspires them, what motivates them to be in these organizations. And a lot of times it's very similar, with suicide loss or having lived experience around mental health. So I think that really helps humanize the whole process. I feel like often when we code, it can feel very disorienting and detached from the human side of things. Like you just, heads down, build a website. But I think for me, what's been important is seeing the people on the other end, seeing who I'm working with, seeing the community that is in the mental health space. And that really pushes me to move forward.
Yes, that is always so important. Community, making those connections is so important. And I actually talked about this in my last podcast episode, you guys. So make sure you guys go check that out. But community is always so important. How does your community inspire you to be better?
I love this question. I think really having a community not only holds you accountable to, always make decisions for, the greater good, but I also think having a community is super important to build good technology and build safe technology. Um, I think, when we build products like Search Mental Health that are geared to help people of all backgrounds and identities, demographics, it's important that we consult with a broad, diverse community that can really represent the users that we're trying to reach. For me in Search Mental Health, that's been talking to people with different backgrounds and experiences. That's like, for example, meeting Kiana, who's a mother of a student at my local high school who actually passed away by suicide. And I have been able to connect with her. I Google Translate text with her often. She's actually been one of the big inspirations of the project. And she's been instrumental in kind of opening up my eyes to, the parent perspective and also the perspective of non-English speaking families. So different people with different barriers that they might face. That's been driving a lot of the new features that I've been trying to build into Search Mental Health and all. So I think, yeah, having a community and having various users that you can talk to during the development process is super important. And so I'm really grateful to have those people like Yana who I can talk to and share ideas with. And I really only hope to meet more people along the way too.
That's beautiful. I love that. So tell us more about like your local community and what are their needs and how you plan to like use tech to address their needs, especially when it comes to mental health and what you're passionate about.
Yeah, I think this is a great time to also, yeah, I love this question because I think um, with Invention Studio, as I've mentioned previously, a lot of the stuff that we encourage people to build in Invention Studio is to build things that directly serve real people, real organizations and their communities. One of the projects that I've built over the years, separate from Search Mental Health, is an app called Nomi, which is a teen peer-to-peer platform that connects people with similar experiences of adversity. So, for example, if a person or if a teenager is experiencing parental divorce, or if they have a sibling with a chronic illness, it's things like that that are kind of often the invisible parts of their identity that they can find and connect with friends over. And so that project was really inspired by
Yeah, and I
my
totally
own
love how you
experiences and
mentioned.
experiences I've heard other students at my school having. And I think that project really is all about community and all about connecting people.
Yeah, I really love that. And I love how you mentioned like the invisible parts of people's personalities, visible parts that we don't end up seeing. What parts of your personality are invisible? What are the things that you think have pushed you to even get to this place? Like the parts that people don't see online or on LinkedIn, or when you're making these amazing projects and smiling for the photo. What are those invisible parts that you think are really crucial and not really like important and vital to you being able to finish these projects or go after the things that you're going after?
Yeah, wow. This is such a great question. I mean, it's fun. I don't think anyone's ever asked me a question like this before, and I think it's very valuable because I don't even think I've asked myself this question before. I mean, I would say a lot of who I am today is credited to my amazing mother. My mom is one of the hardest working people I know. She, through everything that has happened to my family, has she's a person that never complains, that always, you know, keeps pushing, wakes up every morning with a smile on her face, says, you know, good morning to me, and always, is there to support me and hug me and be a shoulder for me to cry on. So she has been really my rock through everything. And I think what she's taught me is the importance of gratitude. This has been something that has really kept me going over the years, is this idea that through everything, there's always something you can be grateful for. Oftentimes I feel like when you're scrolling on LinkedIn or scrolling on social media, there's so many moments where you feel like, oh, I'm not doing enough, or, um, I'm, this isn't going the way I want it to go. And I think remembering how much is already been given to you, and how much should already be celebrated is super important. So I think those, on a personal level, that really helps keep me going and really pushes me through these projects, even when times are tough. And then I think really more on the coding side, the skills that help me kind of keep going through these projects is surrounding myself with amazing other female coders and girls in STEM. They always give me inspiration and hope. I've been fortunate enough to be involved in communities like Girls Who Code, and the National Center for Women in Computing and Information Technology, NCWIT. They're an incredible organization, and these groups have really shown me the power that girls can have when it comes to coding, and that there's really nothing we can't accomplish.
Yes, well said. I would have said the same thing myself. So let's get into some, personal questions. How do you balance having so many cool projects, doing so many cool things with school and family and friends and community and just everything that comes with being a teenager and being a super awesome one at that?
Oh, thank you, Lynn. Well, I mean, I don't think there's any like super special formula out there. I think for me, what helps me like balance things is carving out time on my calendar to just hang out with friends, to completely just forget about everything and go grab, you know, uh, like a nice drink on a hot day. I love, recently I've been really getting into drawing. That's been kind of like a fun little pastime for me to keep my mind off of things. Um, I've been making a pact for myself, or really like a goal for myself, to draw all of my friends and just cool people in my life, like a portrait drawing of them, and to give it to them. So that's something I've just been working on. I also love photography, as I mentioned. Uh, it gives me excuse to like go out into my community, and just like walk around and observe things. Sometimes like talking to people and being around people can be like exhausting, as a lot of like introvert extrovert people can probably speak to, who have an introverted side. So I feel like I love to sometimes just sit in a park and watch people. People watching is really fun. Um, and then really just like self-care tips, like as I mentioned, yeah, carving out time for friends, giving, not over scheduling certain days and leaving weekends free as possible. I also have an amazing little dog, named Kipper, who loves to just cuddle with me whenever, when I'm sitting on a couch or go on a walk with me. So those things keep me grounded, really.
That's so nice to hear. We love dogs. Dogs are great. So, what are some things that you've recently, other than drawing and painting things, that you've been getting into that think kind of help your tech journey, whether it's things like, reading or writing, or maybe it's like math, even though me, myself, and I don't really personally enjoy math, but
Mm-hmm. Oh, I feel you. I feel you. I think in terms of coding and what's helped my coding journey, um, definitely just reading random like blogs, watching a lot of YouTube videos. I have recently kind of discovered, I hate to say it, I feel like I'm gonna get a lot of heat for this, but like I recently discovered like Twitter, um, and as like an interesting place where people kind of spew out very like obscure, but also sometimes insightful content. Though I know that platform was not the greatest place. So I think also even platforms like Quora and Reddit, and just YouTube in general, like if you can start watching the right videos on YouTube, you'll start to get a lot more of them, just how the algorithm works. And sometimes like late at night, I'll like pull up a video, um, on just various different things and just learn about what's happening in the world, but also learn about what's happening in tech. I highly, highly recommend the Hard Fork podcast from New York Times. I love um, Casey and Kevin. They're the podcast hosts on there. And they, every Friday, just talk about all of the cool new stuff that's happening in AI and tech. So that's how I kind of keep up to date in that realm too.
perfect, perfect, perfect. I also talked about being immersing yourself in tech in the last podcast episode, so y'all make sure to check that out after watching this conversation. But Charlotte, the last question, please give us some of your self-care tips, your best ways to like stay grounded, whether it's like doing face masks or if it's skincare, hair care. What are your favorite best self-care tips?
Oh my gosh. Yes, I love this question. It's my favorite one. Um, I, what really matters to me in terms of like self-care is hair care. As you mentioned, I, am one of those people that has like the in-between hair types of like, is it wavy? Is it curly? Is it straight? Like you never know. Like today it's kind of just a frizzy mess. Um, but usually I'm trying to, experiment with new like curl creams and different types of products to see like what will work. I have an English teacher, Sarah, who has the most beautiful curls ever. And she's been giving me hair care tips over the course of our school year. She's even given me like her extra curl cream products, and I've just been trying all of them. And I've had like mediocre luck, but still working on it. So it's kind of like a fun little project for me to just like figure out what works, discover what is my natural hair type along the way. But yeah, it's kind of how I spend my evenings sometimes.
I love hair care. Being a black girl myself, I spend lots of hours trying to maintain my curl type, maintain my fro. So I can
Mhm,
definitely relate to the struggle of looking for
mhm,
looking through products and trying to find like what works for you because everybody's hair is just like a little bit different and it can get frustrating sometimes.
mhm.
But Charlotte, I really appreciate you coming on the podcast, sharing your life and your passions and all the invisible parts of your personality, and even your hair care, experience with us. And I wish you all the best on your future endeavors. If you guys like this episode, make sure you drop a follow, a heart on the podcast, and definitely keep up with Charlotte on her LinkedIn. It's been really fun, Charlotte. Would you like to say anything else?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Lynn. It has been so much fun speaking with you. And guys, Lynn is amazing. Please, please, please watch all of her or listen to all of her podcast episodes. She is amazing. Yeah, so grateful to be here. So grateful to speak to you all.
Yes, definitely second that notion. Make sure you guys go check out the Spotify. It's been fun, you guys. Lynn, signing out.